you tell the stories, you'll have it. You'll have it. When they were really little, the game I used to play with them, I would be a giant, and I'd get in bed and I'd hold them around and I'd say, all right, I'm going to eat you as soon as I wake up, but don't try to escape, because if you wake me up, I'll eat you right now. And then I'd start to snore, and then they would sneak out, right, real slowly, and they were so serious about it, as slowly as they could. And as soon as they got out, I would wake up and I'd chase them through the house, right, and then we'd get them and start all over again. So it was also wonderful to remember, and you know, to have that story now, you know, it's a treasure. It's a treasure. I don't have a photo of it, you know, but I have it here. I've got my own photo of it. When my son, Zach, decided to transfer to Hunter College in New York, he didn't want any help in finding a place to live. He was going to do it all by himself. And that's why I was surprised and really happy that he accepted my offer to go out and help him move into the apartment he found in Brooklyn. I saw it as having quality time with my boy. I was going to take care of him. Now, when the kids were young, that was easy to do. And I liked doing it. I was good at it. In fact, every now and then I was a genius. Once my daughter came to me, she was very little, Sarah. She pulled on my sleeve. She said, I had a nightmare. I said, nightmare? I've got nightmare magic. I can get rid of that nightmare. Her eyes grew really large. I said, okay, put your hands on mine. I did all this hocus pocus stuff. I said, close your eyes and think of something really nice. She did. I said, what are you thinking of? She said, bunnies. I said, that's good. I picked her up, I carried her to bed, put her in bed, and of course she fell right to sleep. And when my son broke his arm, I remember standing in the emergency room, and the doctor said to me, I don't think you want to be here. And I didn't, because I knew what was coming, but Zach didn't. And so when he re-broke the bone in order to set it, and Zach leaped off that bed in pain, at least I was there holding his hand. But then kids grow up. They become teenagers. Try to hold the teenager's hand. Try to protect the teenager, especially some. For instance, Zach. Take curfew. When my daughter was a teenager, we never set curfew. She would just come home at the right time. She would just suddenly show up. It was like living in a teenage Twilight Zone. But Zach, he was the stuff that sitcoms are made of. When he was a sophomore, he took our car and he went out on a date with a girl to her junior prom. She was a junior at another school, an older woman. So he wanted to be out all night. We said, 2 a.m., that's the curfew. Lo and behold, at 2 a.m., he shows up. I thought, hey, we're getting somewhere with the boy. We went back to bed. A little bit later, we heard this crash. I searched the whole house. I discovered in the basement a window was open. I said to my wife, you know what? I think someone was trying to break in. It never occurred to us it was Zach breaking out. He even put a fake body in his bed covered with a blanket. We never saw it. We were so naive, we never went into his room to check. But he got his just rewards. I was afraid the burglars were going to come back. I nailed the window shut. He couldn't get back in. And that night it poured. And so when I went out in the morning to get the morning paper, there he was on the porch, sleeping in a fetal position, looking like a drowned rat. But now a few years later, he was asking me to come out and take care of him. It was going to be a special day for me. But as soon as I got there, things were wrong. We started arguing almost immediately, and about nothing. And I realized very quickly the problem was he didn't want his father there taking care of him. He wanted someone who could buy things. Someone who could rent a car to put them in, and someone who could help him carry them up to his apartment. What he really wanted was a rich Sherpa. I bought him a bunch of things in the morning. In the afternoon, it came time to buy the desk. Everybody said to us, IKEA. Go to IKEA. It was like Mecca. Go to Mecca. So I went to IKEA, an hour and a half on the Long Island Expressway, but I didn't know I wasn't going to IKEA to buy a desk. I was going to IKEA to buy parts to build a desk. Well, I don't watch Home Improvement. But we filled carts, 200 carts, hundreds of pieces. I said to the guy, do we have everything? He said, oh, yeah, sure. Sure. We got to Brooklyn. We don't have everything. I have to drive back to IKEA 3 hours and the round trip. By the time I got back to Brooklyn the second time, I was crazy. I mean, I'd been in New York traffic for 6 hours. I was going to have to build a desk, and I didn't know how. I'd been arguing with Zach all day, and I'm sitting there fuming, and he says to me, listen, Dad, when you're like this, I can't be with you. A little bit later, we went out to dinner, and we're walking down the street, and I thought, I have to explain how I'm feeling. So I launch into the explanation, and he says, do we have to keep talking about this? I left 3 hours early for my flight. Right after dinner, I didn't want to be there one more minute. Now, a year later, we went back to visit him again. During the year, I'd been seriously ill. And I was waiting in the hotel for my doctor to call with some test results. My wife went down to meet him first he had a new girlfriend at the time. And I came down a little bit later, and when I got down there, he hugged me, introduced me to the girl, and asked me how I was. Well, I didn't know what he had told the girl about what was going on. And so I said, I'm fine. Test results were good, and they were good. And we started to walk to lunch. Now, my wife, Adrienne, was walking with the girl, and I was walking with Zach. And Zach did something that I'll never forget. As we walked along, he's taller than I am now. And he threw his arm over my shoulders, and he leaned toward me, and he asked, so how are you really? And as we walked along the street, with his arm around my shoulders, I thought to myself, this is it. This is the future. A year earlier, I'd gone to New York to take care of my boy. A year later, we're walking down the street, and he's got his arm around my shoulders, and he's taking care of me. And I've had a taste of that future. The family went on a trip to Paris. I was feeling better. It was going to be a celebration. 10 days in Paris. On the second day, I stepped out of a bathtub, slipped, fell, and cracked 2 ribs. I spent the rest of the vacation completely drugged up in a little apartment in Paris. It was awful. Every day it was, who's going to stay with the old man while the other 2 go out? On the way home, I was exhausted. My defenses were down. I just watched some sappy movie, and I started to cry. And Zach sat down, and he leaned in real close by my ear, and he said, hey, come on, Dad, don't worry about it. Listen, you're going to have other vacations. It's going to be fine. Listen, Dad, you're better than you were. Come on, you're going to be fine, Dad. You're going to be fine. And I thought to myself, it's like I'm a boxer, just been knocked down. And he was my manager, getting me ready to go out for the next round. And I did go out. And I was fine. And I've been fine many rounds after. But I know I'm going to be knocked down again. I understand there's no getting around it. I'm getting older. I know that. I know that to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to live and a time to die. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to sow and a time to reap. And I know now a time to take care of your children and a time for them to take care of you.